Commander Sarah Chun walked through the bright white halls of the Galactic Council building. Her boots made soft sounds on the smooth floor. Around her, aliens of many different shapes and sizes moved about their business. Some had tentacles instead of arms. Others had blue skin or feathers instead of hair. A few walked on 4 legs instead of 2. Sarah had been to this place many times before. For 50 years, humans had tried to join the Galactic Council. They had sent their best. Diplomats. They had shared their technology. They had even helped some alien worlds solve problems with food and water. But today felt different. Today felt wrong. The voting chamber was huge. Rows of seats went up like stairs, filled with representatives from dozens of different worlds. At the center sat the council's leaders. The Zephyrian ambassador was there, her purple tentacles moving back and forth as she spoke. Next to her sat the tall, thin Valdorian prime minister. His green skin seemed to glow under the bright lights. Sarah took her place in the human section. There were only 12 humans allowed in the chamber. The rest of the human delegation waited outside. Sarah looked around at all the alien faces staring down at them. Many looked angry. Some looked afraid. None looked friendly. The Zephyrian ambassador stood up. Her voice echoed through the chamber as she spoke into the translation device. "We are here today to vote on the human request for membership in the Galactic Council," she said. "But this is not just about membership anymore. We must decide if humans should even be allowed in our space." Sarah felt her heart sink. This was not what they had expected. They thought this would be a simple vote about joining the council. Instead, it sounded like they were on trial. The ambassador continued speaking. "Humans call themselves peaceful. But look at their history. They have fought wars for thousands of years. They have destroyed entire cities with terrible weapons. They kill each other over small pieces of land or different beliefs." Other aliens began to nod their heads. Sarah wanted to stand up and defend her people, but she knew the rules. Humans could not speak during this session. They could only listen. A small, furry alien from the Cathari system stood up next. "Humans are too dangerous," he said in a high, squeaky voice. "On their own world, they have weapons that could destroy all life. What would they do if they had access to galactic technology?" The accusations kept coming. Humans were violent. Humans were aggressive. Humans could not be trusted. Sarah listened to each word and felt anger growing inside her chest. These aliens knew nothing about humanity. They only saw the bad parts and ignored all the good. The Draxi representative spoke next. She was tall and had 4 arms. Her voice was deep and scary. "Humans glorify war," she said. "They make movies and games about fighting. They teach their children that violence can solve problems. This is not the way of civilized people." Sarah wanted to laugh, but she was too angry. The Draxi had conquered 3 star systems in the last century. The Zephyrians had enslaved an entire species just 50 years ago, and they called humans violent. But the worst part was yet to come. The Valorian chancellor stood up. He was old, even for his long-lived species. His white hair fell down to his shoulders. "Humans are unpredictable," he said slowly. "They do not follow the rules that keep the galaxy peaceful. They ask too many questions. They want to change things that have worked for thousands of years. They are a threat to everything we have built." The voting began. One by one, each species cast their vote. Sarah watched the board light up with red marks. Red meant no. Red meant humans were not welcome. Red meant 50 years of hope and work had been wasted. The final count was clear. Every single species had voted against humanity. Not one alien voice had spoken up for them. Not one had said that humans deserved a chance. But the Zephyrian ambassador was not done. She stood up again, her tentacles waving in excitement. "The Galactic Council has decided," she announced. Humans are not just denied membership, they are expelled from all council space. All human ships, stations, and colonies must leave our territory within 1 standard year. Any humans found in council space after that time will be arrested as criminals. The chamber erupted in cheers. Aliens clapped their hands, tentacles, or whatever they used for applauding. They celebrated like they had just won a great victory. Sarah sat in shock. This was worse than she had imagined. They were not just being rejected. They were being thrown out completely. 50 human colonies would have to be abandoned. Thousands of trading posts would be lost. Millions of humans living in council space would have to go home. The human delegation was escorted out of the chamber. Guards with energy weapons made sure they moved quickly. Sarah could hear the aliens still celebrating behind them. As they walked back to their ship, Sarah's mind raced. The other humans in her group looked defeated. Some were crying. Others were angry enough to start a fight right there in the spaceport. But Sarah was thinking about something else. The aliens had made a mistake. A big mistake. They thought humans were dangerous because they fought wars. They thought humans were unpredictable because they asked questions. They thought humans were a threat because they wanted to change things. They were right about all of that. But they had missed the most important part. Humans fought wars because they were good at it. Humans asked questions because they learned from the answers. Humans wanted to change things because they made them better. On the ship ride home, Sarah looked out the window at the stars. Each point of light was a sun, and many of those suns had planets around them. Some of those planets had aliens living on them. Aliens who thought they were safe because they had kicked the humans out of their club. Sarah smiled for the first time that day. The aliens had no idea what they had just done. They had united humanity against a common enemy. They had given humans a reason to work together like never before. Most importantly, they had given humans time to prepare. The ship jumped to faster than light speed, carrying the human delegation back to Earth. Behind them, the aliens continued their celebration. They thought they had solved the human problem. They thought they could ignore Earth and forget about the strange, violent species from the small blue planet. They would learn how wrong they were. Sarah would make sure of that. In 1 year, the aliens expected all humans to be gone from there. Space. In 1 year, they expected to never see humans again. Sarah had different plans. In 1 year, the real lesson would begin. The aliens were about to learn why you should never back a dangerous animal into a corner. The stars grew brighter as Earth came into view. Sarah began planning. The galaxy had rejected humanity. Now humanity would return the favor, but they would do it in their own way. The way that had made them the dominant species on their world. The way that had taken them from caves to spaceships in just a few thousand years. The way of war. Admiral Marcus Rodriguez stood on the observation deck of Luna Station and watched Earth spin slowly below him. The blue planet looked peaceful from up here, but Marcus knew better. Down there, every factory, every shipyard, and every laboratory was working at full speed. The Galactic Council had given humanity 1 year to leave their space. Humanity was using that time to get ready for something much bigger. 3 months had passed since. Commander Chun brought the news back from the council chambers. 3 months since the aliens had made their big mistake. Marcus had spent every day since then planning and preparing. The work never stopped. Luna Station had grown twice as big in just 3 months. New sections were being built every week. The construction crews worked in shifts around the clock. When one team got tired, another team took their place. The sound of welding and drilling never stopped. Marcus walked through the station's main corridor. Through the windows, he could see dozens of spaceships being built. Some were cargo vessels to carry supplies. Others were research ships to study alien technology. But most were warships. Big, powerful warships designed to fight. Elevator took Marcus down to level 7, the restricted section. Only people with the highest clearance could go there. The doors opened to reveal Dr. Elena Vasquez standing over a workbench, covered with alien devices. She looked up when Marcus entered. "Admiral," she said with a tired smile, "you need to see this." Dr. Vasquez had been studying alien technology for 15 years. She knew more about Galactic Council weapons and shields than most aliens did. Her laboratory was filled with devices that humans had traded for or found on abandoned ships. "We finished testing the Zephyrian plasma cannon," she said, pointing to a long silver tube on the table. "It took their engineers 200 years to develop this design. We improved it in 6 weeks." Marcus picked up the device. It was lighter than he expected. "How much better?" 30% more power and 50% better accuracy," Dr. Vasquez replied. "Plus, it uses less energy and fires faster. The aliens built this cannon to last for centuries without breaking. We built ours to win wars." She led Marcus to another workbench. This one had a strange blue crystal sitting in a metal frame. The crystal glowed softly and made a low humming sound. "This is even better," Dr. Vasquez said. "It's a Valdorian shield generator. We took their design and completely rebuilt it. Their shields are designed to stop energy weapons. Ours can stop energy weapons, kinetic weapons, and even some types of matter transportation." Marcus was impressed, but he had seen many impressive weapons in the last 3 months. "What makes this one special?" Dr. Vasquez smiled. "Watch this." She picked up a small metal ball and threw it at the crystal. The ball stopped in mid-air about a foot away from the crystal and fell to the floor. "Valdorian shields do that, but ours do this too." She threw another ball, but this time she pressed a button on a small remote control. The ball passed right through the area where it should have been stopped and hit the crystal gently. "Selective permeability," Dr. Vasquez explained. "Our shields can let our weapons through while stopping enemy weapons. The aliens never thought of that because they only think about defense. We think about attack and defense together." Marcus nodded. This was exactly what humanity needed. The aliens had better technology in many ways, but they used it wrong. They built weapons and shields for peacekeeping, not for real war. Humans built everything for war. "How many ships can you outfit with the new systems?" Marcus asked. "Right now?" "About 50 heavy cruisers and 200 smaller ships," Dr. Vasquez replied. "But production is increasing every week. By the time our year is up, we should have equipment for at least 500 major vessels." Marcus left the laboratory and took another elevator to level 12. This was the command center, where all of Earth's military operations were planned and coordinated. The room was huge, with screens covering every wall. Hundreds of officers sat at control stations, monitoring everything from ship construction to spy missions. General Patricia Hayes was waiting for him. She was in charge of all ground forces and special operations. Her teams were spread across the galaxy, gathering information and setting up secret bases. "Report," Marcus said as he approached her station. "Operation Backstage is ahead of schedule," General Hayes replied. "We have hidden supply depots in 47 systems. The aliens have no idea we're there. Captain Thompson's team just finished setting up a major base in the Kepler system. It's completely invisible to Council sensors." She touched her screen and brought up a map of the galaxy. Red dots showed where human forces were secretly operating. There were a lot of red dots. "The best part is recruitment," General Hayes continued. "We're finding a lot of species who don't like the Council. The Draxi have been enslaving smaller species for decades. The Zephyrians force entire worlds to pay huge taxes. The Valdorians won't let anyone develop new technology without their permission. Marcus studied the map. How many potential allies? At least 12 species are ready to help us when the time comes, General Hayes said. Maybe more. The Council thinks everyone loves them, but they're wrong. A lot of people are tired of being told what to do by aliens who live on the other side of the galaxy. The next stop was the shipyards. Marcus took a shuttle from Luna Station to the orbital construction facility above Earth's moon. The shipyard was enormous, stretching for hundreds of miles in every direction. Thousands of workers moved between the ships, building and testing. And improving dock commander Jackson Webb met Marcus at the shuttle dock. Webb was in charge of ship construction and had been working without a break for months. He looked tired but excited. "Admiral, you have to see the new battleships," Webb said, as they walked through the facility. "We took the basic design from captured hegemony vessels, but we made them completely different." They stopped in front of a massive ship that was still being built. It was twice as long as any human ship had ever been, with weapons sticking out from every surface. But what made it special was not its size or its weapons. Adaptive AI control systems, Webb explained. Every major system on the ship can think for itself and make decisions in microseconds. The aliens use computers to assist their crews. We use computers that can replace entire crews if necessary. Marcus walked around the ship, noting the unusual design features. The hull was covered with small modules that could be reconfigured. During battle, the weapon systems could be quickly changed to fire different types of ammunition. Even the engines could be modified while the ship was flying. "How many will be ready?" Marcus asked. 24 full battleships and 68 heavy cruisers, Webb replied, plus about 400 smaller vessels. Every ship is designed to be upgraded and modified quickly. The aliens build ships that stay the same for centuries. We build ships that can become completely different vessels in a few hours. Marcus spent the rest of the day visiting different facilities. He saw training centers where soldiers learned to use alien weapons better than the aliens did. He saw research labs where scientists worked on technologies that the Council had banned as too dangerous. He saw communication centers where experts studied alien languages and cultures. Looking for weaknesses. By the time Marcus returned to Luna Station, it was late at night. He went to his office and sat down at his desk. Through his window, he could see Earth turning slowly in the darkness. Lights from cities and factories covered most of the planet's surface. Everyone down there was working toward the same goal. Marcus opened his computer and began writing his daily report. Every night, he summarized the day's progress and sent it to all the other military leaders. Tonight's report would be especially important. Day 91 of preparation, he typed. All objectives remain on schedule or ahead of schedule. The Galactic Council expects us to withdraw from their space in 9 months. Instead, we will be ready to take their space away from them. He paused and looked out at the stars. Somewhere, out there, aliens were sleeping peacefully in their beds. They thought they had solved the human problem. They thought they were safe. The Council made 2 major mistakes, Marcus continued typing. First, they assumed that humans would obey their orders and leave quietly. Second, they gave us a full year to prepare. By the time our deadline arrives, humanity will be ready for the largest military operation in galactic history. Marcus finished his report and sent it out. Then he stood up and looked out the window again. In 9 months, those stars would look very different. Some of them would be shining down on human colonies. Others would light the way for human fleets. As they moved deeper into Council space, the aliens wanted humans to leave their territory. Marcus had a better idea. Instead of humans leaving alien space, aliens would learn to live in human space. All of it Captain James Morrison stood on the bridge of the U.S. Defiance and watched the enemy fleet approach. 57 alien warships were coming toward his position near Kepler Station. His own fleet had only 19 ships. To anyone watching, it looked like the humans were about to be destroyed. Morrison smiled. Let them think that 2 years had passed since the Galactic Council had thrown humanity out of their space. 2 years since Admiral Rodriguez had begun preparing for this moment. The aliens thought all humans had gone home to Earth like good, obedient children. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The enemy fleet belonged to the hegemony of Keth. The Keth were one of the most powerful military forces in the Council. They had 7-foot-tall bodies covered in gray armor-like skin. Their ships were some of the most advanced in the galaxy. They had fought wars for thousands of years and had never lost a major battle dot until today. Enemy fleet will be in weapons range in 6 minutes, reported Lieutenant Sarah Kim from the sensor station. They're maintaining their standard battle formation. Morrison nodded. The Keth always used the same tactics. They would form a line with their biggest ships in the center and smaller ships on the sides. Then they would fly straight at their enemy and try to overwhelm them with superior firepower. It had worked for them for centuries, but the Keth had never fought humans before. All ships, this is Captain Morrison, he said into his communicator. Execute battle plan Chaos 7. Remember, we're not just here to win. We're here to send a message. Around him, the bridge crew began implementing the plan they had practiced hundreds of times. The human ships broke formation and scattered in all directions. To the Keth, it probably looked like the humans were running away in panic. The first part of the plan was deception. Human ships were equipped with advanced stealth technology and electronic warfare systems. As the fleet scattered, each ship activated different types of jamming and sensor interference. The Keth would suddenly find it very hard to track their targets. Jamming is effective, reported Ensign Martinez from the communication station. Enemy targeting systems are showing significant interference. Morrison watched his tactical display as the alien ships tried to adjust to the sudden loss of clear sensor data. The Keth were good warriors, but they depended too much on their technology. When that technology stopped working perfectly, they became confused. Phase 2, Morrison announced. All ships activate ghost protocols. This was something the aliens had never seen before. Each human ship began projecting false sensor signatures, making it appear that there were actually 3 or 4 ships, where only one existed. The Keth sensors now showed almost 100 human vessels instead of 19. The alien fleet hesitated. Morrison could see their formation beginning to waver as the Keth commanders tried to figure out what was happening. They had expected to fight 19 small human ships. Now their sensors told them they were facing a much larger force. Sir, the Keth are requesting communication, Lieutenant Kim reported. Put them through, Morrison said. The main screen flickered and showed the bridge of the lead Keth warship. The alien commander was huge, even for his species. Scars covered his armored skin, proof of many battles. His yellow eyes glowed with anger. Human vessel, the Keth commander said in a deep, rumbling voice. I am War Leader Thax of the Hegemony. You are in violation of Council law. Surrender now, and you will be allowed to live as prisoners. Morrison laughed. War Leader Thax, I'm Captain Morrison of the United Earth Space Forces. I have a counteroffer. Surrender now, and some of you might survive what's about to happen. Thax's eyes grew brighter with rage. Impossible. You have only a handful of ships. We have the superior force. Do you? Morrison asked. Are you sure about that? He cut the communication and turned to his crew. Phase 3. Show them what superior force really looks like. The human ships suddenly stopped running and scattered. Instead, They formed into small groups and began attacking the alien fleet from multiple directions at once. But they weren't using normal space combat tactics. They were using strategies that the Keth had never seen before. The U's Defiance led a group of 5 ships in a direct charge at the center of the Keth formation. As the aliens concentrated their fire on Morrison's group, 2 other human squadrons attacked the alien flanks from above and below. The Keth found themselves fighting on 3 fronts at the same time, but the real shock came when the human weapons began firing. Dr. Vasquez's improved designs were far more powerful than anything the aliens expected. Human plasma cannons punched through Keth shields like they were made of paper. Human missiles found weaknesses in alien armor that the Keth didn't even know existed. Direct hit on the enemy flagship, reported Lieutenant Kim. Their main shields are down to 30%. Morrison watched as one of the Keth heavy cruisers exploded in a ball of fire. The aliens were still trying to use their traditional tactics, but those tactics didn't work against an enemy that refused to fight fair. The humans used psychological warfare too. As they attacked, they broadcast recordings of human war music and battle cries on all frequencies. The sounds of Earth's most aggressive music filled the alien ships. Humans had been making music about fighting and conquest for thousands of years, and it showed. "Sir, 3 enemy ships are trying to retreat," Ensign Martinez reported. "Let them go," Morrison said. "But make sure they see this first." He gave a signal, and the U.S. Defiance suddenly accelerated directly toward the largest Keth battleship. The aliens fired everything they had at the approaching human vessel, but Morrison's ship had the best shields Dr. Vasquez could build. The human ship absorbed the damage and kept coming at the last second. Morrison activated the ship's emergency systems and launched himself and his crew in escape pods. The empty Defiance, now controlled by its AI systems, slammed into the Keth battleship at full speed. The explosion could be seen from 3 star systems away, but Morrison wasn't done. As soon as his escape pod was picked up by another human ship, he ordered the final phase of the attack. The remaining human vessels surrounded the surviving Keth ships and demanded their surrender. Most of the aliens chose to fight to the death, rather than give up. That was fine with Morrison. Fewer prisoners meant fewer complications. But a few Keth ships did surrender, and those were taken intact. The battle lasted 4 hours. When it was over, the mighty hegemony fleet was completely destroyed or captured. The humans had lost only 3 ships, and even those crews had mostly escaped in time. Morrison stood on the bridge of his new flagship, the U.S. Vengeance, and looked at the wreckage floating around Kepler Station. 57 alien warships had been reduced to scrap metal and debris. More importantly, 3 Keth vessels had been captured with their crews and technology intact. "Send a message to all human forces," Morrison ordered. "Phase 1 of Operation Payback is complete. The Keth hegemony no longer exists as a military force." He turned to Lieutenant Kim. "Also send a message to Admiral Rodriguez. Tell him we have a present for Dr. Vasquez. 3 intact Keth warships with all their technology." But the most important message would be sent to the Galactic Council itself. Morrison had orders to make sure the aliens knew exactly what had happened here and why. "Open a channel to Council space," Morrison said. "I want to send a message to the Zephyrian ambassador personally." The communication system connected to the Council. Chambers on Nexus Prime. The purple-tentacled alien who had led the vote against humanity appeared on the screen. She looked shocked and afraid. "This is Captain James Morrison of the United Earth Space Forces," he said. "2 years ago, you told us to leave your space because we were too violent and unpredictable. We left, just like you wanted, but you made a mistake." The ambassador's tentacles writhed nervously. What do you want, human?" Morrison smiled. "You forgot that when you forced dangerous animals out of their territory, They don't just disappear. They find new territory. And sometimes they come back for the old territory too. He gestured toward the wreckage around his ship. The Kef hegemony sent 57 warships to destroy our colonies. Those ships no longer exist. Their crews are dead or captured. Their military power is broken. The ambassador was shaking now. You can't do this. The council will. The council will what? Morrison interrupted. Send more fleets? Please do. We're just getting started. He leaned forward. You called us violent and unpredictable. You were right. But you forgot the most important part. We're also very good at being violent and unpredictable. The galaxy is about to learn just how good. Morrison cut the connection and turned to his crew. Around them, human ships were already preparing for the next phase of the operation. In the distance, he could see the lights of human colonies that would never again have to fear alien attack. The Galactic Council had expelled humanity from their space. Now humanity was returning the favor. But unlike the aliens, humans wouldn't stop with just expulsion. The stars themselves were about to change hands. The war had begun, and the humans were winning. General Patricia Hayes stood in the command center of the U.S. Liberation and watched as another star system fell to human forces. On the main screen, dozens of alien ships were surrendering without firing a single shot. It had been like this for weeks now. The galaxy was collapsing faster than anyone had expected. 6 months had passed since Captain Morrison's victory over the Kef hegemony. That first battle had been like dropping a stone into still water. The ripples were still spreading, and each wave brought more alien forces into conflict with humanity. The problem for the aliens was simple. They kept losing. Draxi 4th Fleet is requesting terms of surrender, reported Commander Lisa Park from the communications station. That's the 3rd Draxi fleet this week. General Hayes nodded. The Draxi had been one of the most vocal supporters of expelling humanity from Council space. They were also one of the most aggressive military powers in the galaxy. But aggression without skill was just suicide with extra steps. Tell them the same thing we told the others, Hayes said. Unconditional surrender. All ships and crews become property of the Terran hegemony. Any resistance will be met with immediate destruction. The Draxi were learning what the Kef had learned 6 months ago. Human military tactics were unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. While alien species fought according to ancient rules and traditions, humans fought to win. They used every advantage they could find and created new advantages when none existed. General, we're receiving a transmission from the Valderan system, Commander Park announced. It's not from our forces. It's from the Valderan themselves. Hayes raised an eyebrow. The Valderan Collective was one of the strangest species in the Ust galaxy. They looked like giant insects and thought as a group mind rather than as individuals. They had been enslaved by the Council for over 300 years, forced to provide labor and resources to more civilized species. Put them through, Hayes ordered. The screen flickered and showed a Valderan drone. It looked like a cross between a beetle and a praying mantis, with 4 arms and large compound eyes. When it spoke, its voice was translated by the communication. System, human commanders, the Valderan said. We wish to speak with your leaders about an alliance. Hayes leaned forward in her chair. This was unexpected. The Valderan had never rebelled against the Council before. They had accepted their slavery for centuries without complaint. I'm General Hayes of the Terran hegemony, she replied. What kind of alliance are you proposing? We have watched your forces defeat the Council armies, the Valderan explained. We have seen you offer freedom to conquered species instead of enslaving them. We wish to join your cause and fight against our oppressors. Hayes smiled. Intelligence reports had suggested that many species were unhappy with Council rule, but this was the first time anyone had openly requested to join the human war effort. What can you offer us? Hayes asked. We know the locations of all Council military bases in 17 star systems, the Valder replied. We know their supply routes, their communication codes, and their battle plans. We also control the manufacturing facilities that build their weapons and ships. Hayes felt excitement building in her chest. The Valderan had access to information that would normally take months of intelligence gathering to obtain. With their help, human forces could strike at the heart of Council military power. What do you want in return? Hayes asked. Freedom for our people and the right to govern ourselves, the Valderan said simply. We will serve in your military forces and help you defeat the Council. When the war is over, we wish only to be left in peace. Hayes made the decision immediately. Agreed. Welcome to the Terran hegemony. Over the next few days, similar messages arrived from species across the galaxy. The insectoid hive minds of Arcturus offered to integrate their warriors into human battle groups. The aquatic deep swimmers provided detailed maps of underwater Council facilities. The energy-based Luminos shared technology that could make human ships invisible to most sensors. Each new ally brought more intelligence, more resources, and more reasons for other oppressed species to join the human cause. The Galactic Council had ruled through fear and intimidation for thousands of years. But now there was something more frightening than the Council: humanity. General Hayes moved her command ship to the Kepler system, which had become the unofficial capital of human-controlled space. From there, she could coordinate operations across dozens of star systems. The war room was always busy, with officers planning attacks and managing newly conquered territories. Rodriguez arrived from Earth with reinforcements and new orders. He looked tired but satisfied as he briefed Hayes on the latest developments. The Council is starting to panic, Rodriguez explained. They've lost contact with over 60 star systems in the last month. Their military forces are either destroyed, captured, or running away. Some species are abandoning the Council entirely and declaring independence. Hayes pulled up a tactical map of the galaxy. Red areas showed human-controlled space, which now covered almost a quarter of the galactic disk. Blue areas were still under Council control, but many of those were marked as unstable or contested. What's our next target? Hayes asked. The Nexus system, Rodriguez replied. It's the political center of the Council. If we can take it, the war is essentially over. Hayes studied the map more carefully. Nexus Prime was the most heavily defended world in the galaxy. It had orbital defense platforms, multiple fleets, and shield generators that could protect the entire planet. Taking it would require everything humanity had learned about warfare. How long do we have to prepare? Hayes asked. 3 weeks, Rodriguez said. Intelligence suggests the Council is planning to consolidate their remaining forces for a final battle. If we don't strike soon, they might actually have time to organize an effective defense. Hayes began planning the largest military operation in human history. It would require coordinating hundreds of ships, thousands of troops, and dozens of allied species. The attack would have to be precise, overwhelming, and completely unexpected. But first, she had to deal with a more immediate problem. 3 Council fleets were approaching human territory from different directions. Each fleet was larger than the force that had destroyed the Keth, and they were all arriving at the same time. They're trying to trap us, Hayes realized. Force. Used to split our forces and fight on multiple fronts. That's exactly what they're doing, Rodriguez agreed. The question is, do we give them what they want? Hayes thought about it for a moment, then smiled. No, we give them something they don't expect. We ignore their fleets completely and go straight for their home worlds. The plan was risky, but brilliant. Instead of fighting the Council fleets in space, human forces would bypass them entirely and attacked the planets they were supposed to be protecting. By the time the alien fleets turned around to defend their homes, human ground forces would already be in control. The operation began at dawn on 3 different worlds simultaneously. Human dropships, escorted by fighters and supported by orbital bombardment, descended on the capitals of 3 major council members. The defenders had expected space battles, not planetary invasions. The Zephyrian homeworld fell in 18 hours. The purple-tentacled aliens who had led the vote against humanity found themselves under human occupation before their fleet could return from deep space. The Draxi capital lasted only 12 hours before surrendering. The Valdorian government evacuated their planet entirely rather than face human assault troops. When the Halda council fleets finally returned to defend their homes, they found human flags flying over their government buildings. Worse yet, they discovered that their own people had already begun negotiating surrender terms with human commanders. The psychological impact was devastating. Council species that had seemed united in their hatred of humanity suddenly began questioning whether they were on the right side. If the most powerful military forces in the galaxy couldn't protect their own worlds, what hope did anyone else have? Hayes received surrender offers from 14 different species in a single day. Some offered to switch sides completely. Others requested neutral status. A few asked for permission to join the Terran hegemony as junior partners. All of them had the same message. The war was over, and humanity had won. Standing on the observation deck of her flagship, Hayes looked out at the stars and realized that everything had changed. 6 months ago, humans had been outcasts, expelled from galactic civilization. Now they were the dominant military power in the galaxy. The aliens had called humans violent and unpredictable. They had been right about both things. But they had failed to understand that human violence was directed and purposeful, and human unpredictability came from superior tactical thinking. The galaxy was learning a hard lesson. When you declare war on humanity, you don't get to choose how that war ends. Humanity makes that choice for you, and humanity's choice was simple: total victory. President Sarah Chun stood where the Galactic Council chambers used to be. The building had been destroyed during the final battle for Nexus Prime, but that was fine. Humanity had built something better in its place. The new structure was called the Terran Assembly Hall. It was larger than the old council building and designed very differently. Instead of having the most powerful species sitting above everyone else, all representatives sat at the same level. Instead of closed meetings where only certain aliens could speak, everything was broadcast live across the galaxy. Most importantly, instead of making decisions based on tradition and fear, the new government made decisions based on logic and justice. Sarah looked out over the assembled representatives. There were humans, of course, but also Valderan, Arcturus hive minds, deep swimmers, and dozens of other species. Even some former council members were there, though they sat quietly and spoke only when asked direct questions. 3 years had passed since the war ended. 3 years since the last council fleet had surrendered after realizing that fighting humans was suicide. The galaxy was still adjusting to its new reality, but the changes were mostly positive. The Terran hegemony has achieved something remarkable, Sarah said, as she began her annual address to the assembly. We have brought peace to a galaxy that had known only oppression and conflict for thousands of years. It was true, though the peace had been won through overwhelming military force. After the Battle of Nexus Prime, no alien species had been willing to continue fighting against humanity. The choice had been simple: accept human rule or face complete destruction. Most had chosen wisely. When the old council expelled humanity from their space, they claimed we were too violent and aggressive, Sarah continued. They said we could not be trusted with advanced technology or allowed to participate in galactic government. Sarah paused and looked directly at the section where former council members sat. The Zephyrian ambassador was there, though she no longer held any real power. The Draxi representative kept his 4 eyes focused on the floor. The Valdorian delegate looked like he wanted to be anywhere else in the galaxy. They were partially correct, Sarah admitted. Humans are aggressive. We do solve problems through force when necessary. We are willing to fight and die for principles that other species find unimportant. The alien representatives shifted uncomfortably in their seats. They still feared human anger, even after 3 years of peace. But the old council made a fundamental error in their judgment, Sarah said, her voice growing stronger. They assumed that human aggression was random and destructive. They failed to understand that human violence is always directed toward a purpose. She activated a holographic display that showed the current state of the galaxy. Most star systems glowed green, indicating peace and prosperity. A few yellow areas showed minor disputes being resolved through negotiation. There were no red zones at all. Under council rule, 17 different wars were being fought across the galaxy, Sarah explained. Millions of beings died every year, in conflicts that served no purpose except to maintain the power of the ruling species. Entire civilizations were enslaved or destroyed. The hologram shifted to show historical data from the Council era. Red zones covered almost half the galaxy. The death tolls were staggering. Under human rule, major warfare has been eliminated entirely, Sarah continued. Crime rates have dropped by 90%. Economic productivity has increased by 300%. Most importantly, no species lives in fear of being conquered or enslaved by their neighbors. This was accomplished through what humans called overwhelming deterrence. Any species that considered starting a war knew that human forces would arrive within days to stop it. Any government that oppressed its people knew that human troops would remove that government from power. The policy was simple. Behave peacefully, and humans would leave you alone. Start trouble, and humans would end it permanently. Sarah moved to the next part of her speech, the part that many aliens still found difficult to accept. The old council claimed to represent all species equally, she said. But in reality, power belonged only to the largest and most aggressive civilizations. Smaller species had no voice. Peaceful species were ignored. Different cultures and beliefs were suppressed in favor of conformity. This had been one of humanity's first discoveries after taking control of the galaxy. The Council's records showed centuries of discrimination, exploitation, and cultural genocide. Hundreds of species had been forced to abandon their traditions and adopt Council-approved lifestyles. The Terran hegemony operates on different principles, Sarah announced. Every species has the right to govern itself according to its own values and traditions. Every world has the right to develop its own technology and culture. Every being has the right to live free from fear and oppression. The only requirement was that these rights could not be used to harm others. A species could practice any religion they wanted, but they couldn't use that religion to justify slavery. A world could develop any technology they chose, but they couldn't use that technology to build weapons of mass destruction. Sarah looked around the assembly hall and saw the faces of beings from across the galaxy. Some looked grateful. Others looked resigned. A few still looked afraid, but none of them looked hopeless, which had been common under Council rule. The transformation has not been easy, Sarah admitted. Many species resisted human authority at first. Some believed they could return to the old ways if they waited long enough. Others hoped that human rule would prove to be temporary. Those species had learned otherwise. Human military forces were stationed in every major star system, ready to respond to any threat within hours. Human intelligence services monitored all communications for signs of rebellion or conspiracy. Most importantly, human-trained administrators now ran the governments of former Council worlds. But resistance has given way to cooperation, Sarah continued. As species have experienced the benefits of peace and justice, they have chosen to embrace the new order rather than fight against it. This was mostly true. The Valdern had become enthusiastic supporters of human rule after being freed from slavery. The Arcturus hive minds had integrated so completely with human military forces that they now considered themselves honorary humans. Even some former council species had begun to appreciate the stability and prosperity that human rule had brought. Others simply kept their opinions to themselves, which was fine with humanity. Sarah moved to the final section of her speech, part that would set policy for the coming year. The Terran hegemony is not an empire built on conquest, she declared. We are a government built on the principle that strength should serve justice, not the other way around. This was the core philosophy that separated human rule from everything. That had come before. Previous galactic governments had used their power to benefit themselves at the expense of everyone else. Humans used their power to maintain order and protect the weak. This year, we will continue expanding our educational programs to help species develop their full potential, Sarah announced. We will continue improving trade networks to ensure that all worlds have access to resources they need. We will continue upgrading defense systems to guarantee that no external threats can endanger galactic peace. She paused and looked directly at the camera that was broadcasting her speech across the galaxy. To those species who have embraced the new order, we offer our gratitude and our continued partnership. To those who still harbor thoughts of rebellion, we offer this reminder. Human rule is not a temporary condition that you can wait out. It is the permanent new reality of galactic civilization. Sarah's voice became harder, more threatening. 3 years ago, the old council thought they could intimidate humanity into submission. They discovered how wrong they were. Any species that believes they can challenge human authority will make the same discovery. She let that warning hang in the air for a few seconds before returning to a more diplomatic tone. But we hope such reminders will not be necessary. The galaxy has seen what happens when humans are forced to fight. It has also seen what happens when humans are allowed to build and create. We prefer the second option, and we believe most species do as well. Sarah concluded her speech and walked off the platform. Behind her, representatives from dozens of species began discussing the policies she had announced. Some debated the details enthusiastically. Others simply nodded their agreement and prepared to implement whatever humans had decided. As Sarah left the assembly hall, she reflected on how much had changed since her mother's mission to the old council chambers. Commander Sarah Chun had returned to Earth with news of humanity's expulsion from galactic civilization. President Sarah Chun now ruled that same civilization. The galaxy had rejected humanity because they thought humans were too dangerous to be trusted with power. They had been right about humans being dangerous, but they had been wrong about not trusting them with power. Under human rule, the galaxy was safer, more prosperous, and more just than it had ever been. Species that had been enslaved for centuries were now free. Worlds that had been stripped of resources were now thriving. Conflicts that had raged for millennia had been resolved permanently.